Good morning, everyone. In case you haven't been here yet, my name is Emma Baranowski, and I am from the AUVESY Inc. office here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I want to take a moment to welcome you to the AUVESY Image Service webcast for versiondog 8.0. Hopefully today, my colleague Doug will be able to present a couple of tips and tricks that you didn't know and to help along your journey of using AUVESY Image Service. Just a couple of housekeeping things before we get going. We ask that the participants please keep your microphone on mute. This just kind of helps with the outside noise and so everybody can hear. During the presentation, if you have any questions, please type those in the chat box and we'll make sure that we get those to Doug and that he can be able to answer those for you. We do have another webcast that's coming up on Thursday, November 5. This will be at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And in that one, we'll be talking a little bit about device integration. I know some emails have gone out and it's up on the website as well if you would like to learn more or register for this. If you haven't seen that, please feel free to reach out to me and I'd be happy to get you that information. The easiest way to get a hold of me would be sending an email to info@auvesy.com. Again, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We want to respect everybody's time, so we will get going. And I would hand it over to Doug Campbell.
Thank you, Emma. Hello, everyone. I'm going to begin sharing my screen now so that you can see our versiondog user client. Emma, can you see everything okay?
Yes, sir, I can.
All right. So today we're going to go over the AUVESY Image Service, how you can create a restorable backup for any PC in 4 easy steps. We're going to cover what's new in versiondog 8.0 and also take a brief glimpse at what we expect to come in the near future with our image service. So let's just jump right into the product. Here we're in our AUVESY versiondog user client. We've got our Webcast directory created already, so now we'll create a new component. Here you see the menu for every device that we support. For today's purposes, we just want AUVESY services and the AUVESY image service. Now we click Create Component. Now at this point, this is just an empty folder. It's got versiondog properties, but from a Windows point of view, it's just an empty directory. So we're going to want to create the base version and check it in because currently this resides on our versiondog client archive, but it is not yet on the server. Pardon me, we want to check in without base version because we have no data. And this just writes a placeholder onto the server. Now we can go to our admin client and the jobs module. And now we see under Webcast, so we have our AUVESY image service placeholder. So we create a job. The upload type is correct by default. Execute, it can be scheduled or not. We're going to leave it unscheduled for now, but you could set it to run every day at 1 o'clock in the morning or whatever time frame works for you. We do not need to use any agents. Here, we simply put in the IP address or the static name of the target PC. Now here you see that I've already got global defaults because in the global settings, another module that I'll show you before we're done today, I've already plugged in all of the credentials that are necessary for the service account, which is going to be executing the initial installation of the 3 services that are necessary to do an image backup for us. So this is going to do a remote install. If you can't do a remote install for some reason, it can be done manually. And again, we can cover that before we're through today. Here, what to save. You could grab the entire operating system or all drives on that computer. For demonstration purposes, we'll go with selected drives. Now, when I click in this field, we're going to initiate the installation of the services, and this should allow us to view partitions on our target PC. Now, this is the smallest, just 260 megabytes, so we don't sit here and watch spinning circles all day. Again, you could select the entire drive or any other partition. We'll go for this one. Storage location is significant. By default, we do not store the image on the versiondog server itself. It's going to go to a network share that could be located anywhere within your network. Anyway, I've already chosen a default IP address and a user with administrative rights who has permission to write to that folder. The password is pulled from the global settings. And now we save. And we should be able to execute the job. All right, we have a successful upload of the partition from my host PC. This warning is expected on any versiondog job. The first time that you run it, you're going to get a warning that there is not a previous backup with which to compare. In this case, because we also don't have a server version, you're going to get this warning. Now, with images, it's customary to not create a server version, but you could. There's no reason not to. Unless, Jochen, do you have any thoughts on server versions and why they are or are not a good idea?
Here, somebody use the server versions if they creating a golden image, if they are installing a new computer. So sometimes they use the most important settings on the computer, create an image and use this as golden image. And during the run of the computer, there are so many changes. If you want to go back to the lowest and smallest installation, you can use the version, the golden version. So in this case, it makes sense to create a version. For normally image creation, it's not necessary to create a versiondog version.
Right, thank you. I also want to take a moment to talk about the save policy, which is always save a backup, keeping previous. You can also change the compare policy so that you can save, you can compare what was found on the device with your previous version and what was found on the previous backup, or you can ignore what was found on the server version. As of versiondog 8.0, it is now possible to create a local storage. So you could make a duplicate of what we found on this drive on that local machine if you had multiple hard drives. In this case, we don't. We've just got a C drive. But if you had a D, you could copy crosswise. So you could have a copy of C on D and vice versa. So now with the job executed, we can go to our image storage location and see that this is the IP address of the machine that we've just backed up. And this is every instance of the job that's been run since this was originally configured. So every time this particular device is backed up, you're going to see this, this new file created with the date code. So you can always go back and restore your device whenever necessary to whatever date is necessary.
Okay, Doug, I had a question. Can you still explain what it's actually being compared after the upload? Is it the image file or is it any other information?
Right, so it's not actually comparing the entire image. When the image is created, we create a summary file, which contains a hardware ID and some other configuration info. So what's really being compared is that summary file instead of an in-depth comparison of the image itself.
Okay, thank you. Can you show us this summary file?
Yes. Inside of our image or our most recent. That's the wrong place.
Yeah, for this you need to check out over the versiondog to see the summary file. Yeah, it's not stored in the storage location. It's just inside versiondog because we only need it for the compare. Yeah. It's a little bit confusing to find the correct location.
So I can go to our server archive.
Or you're in your checkout. If you check out an image, you copy it into a directory, you also will be able to find this summary file.
To check out this bit?
Correct? You don't have to use it. Okay, it's another confusing point because you don't use the checkout function from versiondog. You have to go to your job history, to your job results.
And we copy version to directory.
Correct. It's the usual way to copy any backup. It's the same way like other backup jobs in versiondog. And now if you open the file manager, you can see the summary. Correct.
So Jochen, can you tell me a bit about what we've got here and how it's significant?
Yeah, we store all these informations from this device or the computer we are creating an image of, because maybe it's important if anybody changes any hardware part of this computer and you want to do a procedural recovery, and you have changed the hard disk or the network device card or any other part. Maybe there is a problem if you proceed recovery with an older image file. So if you realize that there's any hardware have been changed in the past during the latest job run and the current job run, so it's just an information or a warning. You're also able to recover your computer with the image, but sometimes there are some driver problems if you do a recovery with an older image, and maybe the new computer or the new hardware needs another driver. So you need to spend much more time to install the correct and the needed drivers. In the future, I'm not sure if you're talking about this later. In the future, we will not store only an ID, which is generated during the job run with all MAC addresses from all parts. In the future, we will store a completely list with every hardware component inside this computer. I'm not sure. Do you show this? You talk about this later in your presentation, right?
Well, we've got the what's coming up in versiondog 8. So this is going to become a much more robust file for future purposes. But for now, I thought that we could back up and talk about the storage location, because part of what's new in versiondog 8 is we now have the ability to change the temporary storage per job, as opposed to just having one global standard. And Jochen, do you have a few thoughts on that, on how we could better express it?
Yeah. In our recommended way, if we use only a network share as storage location, it's a final storage location. For this way, it's necessary that the device could have the permissions to write on the final storage location, and also have a connection to the final storage location. If you have any network configurations where the device you want to create an image of does not have the permissions to write on the storage location directly, or the storage location is not reachable from the device you create, from the target PC. So there is an option to put another storage location between of them as a bridge. So the device will create this image, or our image service on the target device will create the image on the temporary storage location, and versiondog server will be able to copy this or cut this out and paste it into the final storage location. In this case, it's not necessary to give all the users from the target devices the permissions for writing data on the storage location. Mostly the best way, and that's why we recommended it this way, is the directest way from the device to the final storage location, because every step between of them means that it's another network traffic necessary.
Right.
And this takes a lot of time if the bandwidth of the network is not that good. Okay.
Understood. And we've also covered briefly how when we browse here, we do a remote installation of the necessary services, but that's also possible through another method. So
Doug,
if our...
Doug, I want to interrupt really quick. Somebody didn't catch what you were just saying, and they would like you to clarify. They said, I didn't quite catch that. Do I have to install anything on my target computer to create an image of it?
Yes, it is necessary to install three services that will run in the background. As a grand total, I think that these services amount to about 12 megabytes worth of data. So it's not a very heavy installation. It can be done either in an automated fashion through the method that we just demonstrated, or through a manual method using our web installer.
Yeah, maybe you can show us the global settings, and inside the global settings you can show the web installer and how does it work. Here are the credentials you talked about during your job configuration.
Right, and so this is where I set my global credentials. So let's say that we have one service account that's installed on all of our PCs that we're going to be backing up. You can plug that information in here one time, and it's no longer necessary to do it every time you create a new job. We've also created a universal storage location. Again, this can be configured per job if you want to, but this makes it easy to know that you have a central location where all of your images are going. And here you see the web installer, which we have enabled, and this link to it.
Yeah, in this case, because you're working on the server, you use the IP address localhost, but you're also able to reach this web installer from the target PC.
Yes.
For this, you have to make sure that the port isn't blocked in the network or from any firewall. You're able to create your install packages. Yeah, it sounds really big, but it's a really small install package. You don't have to install every of these three services. It's just one install package. You can show it how it works, Doug. Just create an install package for your target PC. It's really easy. You have to use the name or the IP address because for the communication between target PC and versiondog server, we are creating give me the name, Doug. A certificate, yeah, to make the connection secure. So that's the reason why we have to type in the IP address. If you want to install manually the services on a few or many target PCs, you have to create, in this case, one install package after another, because you have to use the correct and individual IP address.
So in this field, we would enter the IP address of the versiondog server itself. Jochen?
Oh, sorry. Could you repeat your question?
I'd say in this field, we enter the IP address of the versiondog server.
No, from the target PC you want to create an image of.
Another one of the questions that has come up today was the install user. Do they need to be a domain admin?
It needs to be an admin user, because you need the permission to install any services or applications. Yeah. Okay. Did you start the download? Okay.
I did.
Okay, now you see the zip file, yeah. Additional, we have additional option how you could install the image service. You also can use a software distribution tool you're using. We are working on a documentation how you can use it easily with this distribution tool. So it makes it really easy if you have any tool with which you are distributing your any third-party software on your devices.
Okay, so outside of using a software center or some other Windows device to push, if you can just get this collection of files together on a USB stick or however you can get it to your target PC, you can install everything here. And then we don't have to worry about the automated pushing
Correct.
that we use through the admin client.
Yeah, and now the only thing you have to do is to run this service installer, and then yeah, that's everything.
Right.
It's not a big installation. It's just starting copying the services on the target PC and starting these background services.
Right. Very simple, very straightforward.
Yeah, and very small. This is important because a lot of the target PCs our customers want to create an image of has only a really small and older hard disk, and you cannot put a big application with 1 gigabyte or more to create an image on this device. So we want to make sure that our image service will be able to run on every older device.
Right.
I do have another question.
Okay.
This one really, from my understanding, their network is very restrictive. So when the installation from the versiondog server is not possible, then can they create this package on a target computer and install it from there directly?
I would say yes. I should be able to do that.
Yes. You can run this. You have to make sure that the address of the versiondog server is in the same network, and the port isn't blocked in the network, so you can use the internet browser on every computer in the network to create these install packages. The one way is you do this centralized on your versiondog user client to create all your install packages. Then you put it on the USB stick and walk around your plant and install all these services, or you walk around, open the internet browser, and create for this device you're working on the installation package, and then you go to the next workstation and do the same thing.
Right. Speaking of USB sticks, that also brings us to the last point in what's new in versiondog 8, which is the boot medium for recovery, also known as the boot stick, which is installed with a pre-installation environment of Windows so that you can take a blank hard drive and plug this in to any new or damaged PC. And as long as your hardware is okay, you can restore to that version of Windows, and all of your file structures and everything will come back. So this is a very easy method for restoring destroyed PCs. Jochen, do you have any thoughts to further flesh that out?
Yeah, the USB stick is an important part of our plans with the image service. Currently, we use it to make a recovery possible on a system with a new hard disk without any Windows installation. So to use this drive snapshot executable application, it's necessary that you have a running Windows. And with the USB stick, we cannot deploy the image for this USB stick. It's a Windows PE. We are able to give you the tool that you can create your own boot image for the USB stick based on your Windows license. It's a license problem. That's why we give you the chance to download the tool. Maybe you can show the versiondog info page with a link to our tools.
Okay.
While you're navigating right there, one of the questions that came about is which port is the image service using by itself on a normal run?
This is the 64007 for the remote installation and for the job execution, and the port which ends with the 8 is just for the web installer to create these installed packages. You also can see this if Doug opens the versiondog info page. You can see all the requirements before you start to check or test your image service on your versiondog server. You have to make sure that you see all the requirements, and then if you are sure that everything is done, you can start. It makes it easier, so you don't have to fix problem after problem and it comes to another problem. It depends on the permissions from your network, how restricted configured this network is, and your switches, if they are blocking any ports. So you have to add some firewall rules that it's allowed to communicate over the port we need.
Right, so you can see my screen again. You see where we've got the link in versiondog.info to where you can find the boot stick. We log in and go to downloads. There's our boot stick download.
Correct. In the future, why this USB stick is so important, our plan is to create a mobile AUVESY image client who works on a boot stick. We do this for the reason because currently in the current version we are only able to create an image of a Windows system. And in the future, we want to create images from Linux systems. So because our service only runs on Windows, we have to deploy a Windows PE system with a running image service client. So that's why the USB sticks are so important for the future.
Right.
So another question that we have is how many backups will be stored and can that be configured?
By default, I believe that it's 5, and yes, that can be configured. You should see
And
it
then-
Yeah,
here
you
in
have
this
to do
window.
this. If there are many images on the storage location, and you keep 100 of them, and
Yeah.
you create an image of very big hard disks, you need a lot of space in the storage location to keep all these images.
Now, going along that lines, a follow-up question that someone had, they wanted to know, is it possible to do a grandfather, father, son backup scheme?
Would that be like a differential image, Jochen?
Yeah, this is also our plan in the future to make differential images possible. But currently, there's only possible to create full images.
And continuing along the lines with the backups, is there a way to create a backup of a PC which is offline?
In the future, yes, it's also a use case why we are creating or we are working on a mobile client. And we also want to include this image service in our versiondog backup client, who's made for offline backups.
Wonderful. And I want to just first say, thank you very much to people who are submitting questions. That's what we are here for, is to take this time to answer your questions. So thank you to those who are asking them. And thank you, Doug and Jochen, for taking the time to answer those.
Well, of course. And any questions that come in later or that are perhaps too lengthy for us to cover during this presentation, we'll be happy to get back to you via email or other mediums. So please, anything that you want to know, we're here to help.
Yeah, and also in the future, if you have any special network configurations, we try to keep the job configuration simple, so everybody's able to create a job. We are also able to create images in special network configurations. It's hard to explain all these special options inside the job configuration. So if you have any questions, if you think you have a special network configuration, take a look to versiondog info. We explained a lot of these special configurations, and if you can't find the best solution for your configuration, contact us and we will help you to find the best configuration. Or maybe we have a new requirement we will put in our plan for the future versions. You're every time welcome with your ideas and requirements.
All right. Well, unless we have further questions, that's about all the information that I have prepared to present. Emma?
Right now, we haven't seen any more questions come in. Just waiting to give everybody a little opportunity in case there's some additional questions. Again, please message those.
Of course.
I don't want to cut people off. We're here for them. So
Yeah, of course. So in the meantime, while Jochen was speaking, I went ahead and ran that job again. And you see where we had this warning that the previous backup was not present. Now you can see that it is and that they are equal. We're still getting the not present with warning, which is something that I hope will disable in the near future, because for the most part, it doesn't really make sense to check in an image into the versiondog server because of the ever-changing nature of these things. But you can just see how the comparator catches these things.
Correct. Maybe we talk a little bit about the local storage, the additional local storage.
Yeah, of course.
One use case was that the most of our customers, for the most of our customers, it's not important how long how much time takes the image creation, but it's very important to be able to do a really quick and fast recovery. So with this local storage location, you're able to do very quick recovery because you don't have to copy the image over network share. If you have a low bandwidth of your network, it takes a lot of time to copy all this data over the network, and so you can make sure that you have the latest recovery, the latest image file for the recovery local on the computer you want to recover. It's important. It doesn't make any sense to store the image on the same volume or hard disk, because if the hard disk is broken, the image file will also be broken. So it makes sense if you have a second hard disk on this computer.
Right.
You can create. You explained it in your demonstration.
Briefly, but I think it's worth pointing out that even if you have local storage enabled, it's still going to be stored on our network path also.
Exactly. It's an additional storage location.
Right.
In talking a little bit about, we were talking about the usernames and passwords. One of the questions that did come up was, instead of a domain admin for the default install user, a local admin with the same username and password on all of the target machines should work also. Is that correct?
That is correct. That's the reason why we put these settings in the global settings. Some customers have one service admin user that you are using on every device, so you don't have to type this the credentials in every job. It's enough if you type the credentials inside the global settings. So if there is no user typed in the job configuration, the default, with default, the global settings will be used, but you're able to override these default settings in the job configuration. If there is any device who has another admin user, you can rewrite this user and password inside the job configuration. Super admin, yeah. That's a good idea.
This is, as a demonstration, this can always be overridden.
Yeah. And it doesn't need to be a domain user. It's also possible if it is a local admin user. So in this case, you have to use to type in the IP address from the target in front of the username and backslash between of it, because you have to tell our installation service that he has to use the local admin user. Maybe if you don't type in the IP address or the domain, the user could not be found. But in this case, the job runs into an error, and you can find the reason for the failed job inside the job event or the event log. And the messages are really clear, and mostly they tell you what's the reason is, and you can fix it and try again.
Do users need access to the network storage to access the backup, or is there another way?
It needs not to be the same admin user for the remote installation, but you need an admin user. It's not necessary that it is an admin user, but the user needs the permission to write data on the storage location. This could be a domain user or also a local user on the storage location. The important thing is the permissions.
This is another use for the temporary storage, right? So if we've got a user who doesn't have permission to write into the file share that's going to be the final location for our image, then it could write into another location elsewhere, and then the versiondog server could read that file and then write it into the final location.
Yeah, this is exactly one of the use cases why we implemented these temporary storage.
Okay.
That's wonderful. Well, I haven't seen any more questions kind of or come through yet, but I do want to be respectful of everybody else's time. So I'm just going to work on winding up a little bit, and maybe if we get one or two questions before we close. But again, I just want to thank everybody for taking time out of their day-to-day to learn more about the image service for versiondog 8.0. Again, thank you to both Doug and Jochen, who have really done well educating all of us about this. If you have any more questions, maybe there's something specific to your organization, feel free to send them an email. They can be reached at support@auvesy.com or support@auvesy.de. And they are always there, and we have a wealth of team in both Germany and the United States to be able to help and assist you in any way that we can. And again, we hope that you have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for coming to today's webcast. Have a great day.